Welcome to the Church Solutions Podcast, brought to you by JSL Solutions. The Church Solutions Podcast is designed to help equip you and your church in the use of technology and other tools and services. And now, here are your hosts, Steve Lacy and Phil Thompson.
Hello and welcome to Church Solutions, the podcast. My name is Phil Thompson.
Hi, and I'm Steve Lacy.
And Steve and I are here today as we are on a weekly basis doing these podcasts to hopefully encourage you as someone who's working in church ministry. And we specialize in usually technical stuff.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Tech stuff, but we are broader than that.
We are broader than that, but today we're going to kind of focus in on a tech-related issue that has been coming up for years and more, and it has to do with streaming video, and it has to do with should you do streaming video in HD or should you do it in
SD.
HD, of course, is high definition. SD is
standard definition.
Standard definition, and so the big thing today, and it's been kind of building momentum now, has been putting your video up online and making it HD. But really, HD. First of all, we're gonna give you a heads up here. We're probably going to lean more towards the idea of standard definition instead of high definition. However, we can help you with high definition. But we'll get into the reasons why we think standard definition still is a good way to stream your video. Steve, you and I have had some experience with this the last few years when it comes to streaming live. True HD, or as we said, high definition, has to do with really a resolution of 1920 by 1080. We're talking pixels.
That would be 1080p. Now, I guess if you look it up, HD really starts at 720p.
It's true.
So, which is what, 1020? I forgot my numbers. The lower one is 720.
I think it's 1280 by 720.
1280 by 720, yeah. Okay.
So at least we sound like we know what we're talking about here. But
I should pull that up in front of me.
So really, when you're streaming something, if you're going to do HD streaming, let's just get right down to brass tacks here. If you're going to stream it on the internet, you're going to have really high upload speed, okay? Which is becoming less and less of a problem today,
right?
Because internet service providers are giving people higher upload speed. So
right.
So in some ways that's a good thing, but you also need equipment to handle that. So you're going to have HD cameras, and again, that's becoming less and less of a problem. There's more and more HD cameras coming out there, and they're getting cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good thing. But you're also going to need to have hardware to match that. So you're going to have video capture devices or video capture cards.
Right.
And you're going to also have to have a live encoder that works well with high definition.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Flash Media Live Encoder, which is a free live encoder produced by Adobe, is a very good encoder, but it's not very good when it comes to high definition.
Right, exactly. I mean, we've had several issues with it accepting or even talking to video cards that are sending an HD signal. I just this past week was dealing with a church that just upgraded their equipment and were calling us saying the Flash Media Live Encoder no longer recognizes my video card input. And turned out they had just upgraded to HD, and so there's a constraint with the Flash Media Live Encoder. It's not well suited for the HD input. And
we've dealt with a number of our customers because we do streaming video. StreamingChurch.tv is one of our companies, and I can tell you right offhand that if you're trying to get customer service from the people at Adobe Flash Media Live Encoder, you will fail miserably, and you better make sure that there's people there that constrain you, because I had a fellow, I think it was last year, one of our customers who was bound and determined to make the Flash Media Live encoder work with HD, and so he was going to get on their phone support. I don't know, I guess they have it, I don't know, And he said he spent hours and hours talking to somebody from a foreign land and he never got anywhere, I guess. And I told him, I said, keep me up to date on this because I'm curious to see, if you can get it to work. Because so far I've come up with zeros. And if somebody's listening to this podcast and you're streaming in HD and you're using Flash Media Live Encoder, we'd love to hear from you. Support at streamingchurch.tv. Let me know how it goes. But I haven't found anybody yet to really make it work successfully.
Right.
You can make it work, but it's going to have issues where there's audio video gets out of sync, and there's some other problems that come up too. So anyhow, I'm giving you this little story. So this guy, he's on this, this mission to get this thing to work. And my quick answer to him was, well, why don't you just go with something like Wirecast? Because I know that works. So, no, I'm going to, and he really had spent a lot of money on other equipment. It wasn't just, the Flash Media Live Encoder, as you and I, Steve, know, it's free.
Right.
It's a good encoder too. But it's very, very free. But it's not very free when it comes to HD stuff because you're fighting it. So anyhow, I'm trying to condense this story. But let me just say, he spent a lot of money on equipment, on lots of other things to stream HD. And he wasn't really ready to spend $500 more for Wirecast. So he's bound and determined to make this work. So about a week or two later, I finally called the guy because I hadn't heard from him. I said, I can't remember his name. We'll just call him Bill. And I said, Bill, whatever happened with that deal? He goes, there's silence on the other end. And he goes, I just got Wirecast. And he just had pulled his hair out trying to deal with, the Adobe people. So, and you'll find this to be true in some of these situations where customer support is just zero.
Yeah. So it's a case of the weakest link in the chain there. And when you're doing or trying to do HD, the weakest link is going to be the Flash Media Live Encoder.
Yeah, that's usually the case. And so I'm just giving you, we're talking about this. We're not saying don't do HD streaming. But we are talking about, are you looking to not spend a lot of money, but, have something that works so that when you have volunteers coming into church, you boot up the computer and you turn the cameras on, you turn whatever else on, in the sound booth or wherever you go, you want it to work. Right. You don't want these things, because you know how it is before a service starts. There's all sorts of stuff's going on. It's not just your deal, it's everybody else's. And if you're like me, other people asking you stuff. And so, getting back to our standard definition versus HD deal here, let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons to both. Okay, and we started off on a negative side here, but there's nothing wrong with HD. What's some of the pros to streaming HD?
The picture quality is going to be better. I mean, that's obviously the number one choice, but the resolution is only a part of the formula. When you're streaming. So you're going to need to send up a certain resolution and you're going to need to accompany that with a certain bandwidth. And so on the pros side, you're going to have a much better picture quality. It's going to be a great experience for people viewing
and especially if they're viewing it on a really large screen.
Right. If they've got a large screen and try not to get into the cons right away here, but down the line, you're going to need some equipment and you're going to need some bandwidth, and people viewing the HD stream are going to need some equipment and bandwidth to be able to consume.
But there's ways around that which we can talk about. So let's first of all say, okay, with an HD picture, it's going to look really good. So I find myself like you, Steve, but you're also going to need this and this and this. So if you want to stream HD, and especially if you have putting it on large flat screens, like our church, when I was with your church years ago, we streamed over to another campus.
Right.
And there was 2 flat screen TVs and there was a projector.
Right.
Okay. But we didn't stream HD. We streamed standard definition.
Right.
And you could tell.
Right.
So if there ever was a good time to stream HD,
that would have been
it.
Right.
Because you got these big screens and you're going to another campus or another part of your facility, whatever you might have. And so that's going to be good. And if people, even on some of the laptops, if they want to go full screen, the HD will certainly make it look nice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, keep in mind, if you're going to stream and have high resolutions, you better make sure that your cameras are good, and you better make sure that your lighting is good. Make sure the pastor wears makeup. Well,
Yeah.
maybe not that, but you want to make sure that all these other elements, because you've got everything is blown up and looks better, so you're going to see things that you may not have seen before. So high definition it looks good. Um, let's talk for a moment about the cons then, I guess, because I can't think of any more pros.
Yeah, I was trying to think of another pro myself.
So that you mentioned, okay, if you're going to stream in HD, unless you've got some kind of a setup where people can their devices are automatically going to uh, uh, change the stream of what they're getting, you're going to have to put up several different streams. Because if you just stream HD at a high resolution and and you need a high upload speed.
Yeah, you need a good bit rate in order to support the frame rates and the large resolutions, that sort of thing.
And I'm getting off track here, but let's talk about that for a moment. It's kind of like you're going to have plenty of gas in the carburetor to get it to go. So you've got to have plenty of upload speed. Otherwise, you'll get pixelation. I guess that's the word. Pixelation. Again, I'm getting real technical here myself. But if you don't have enough juice, so to speak, in the pipe, you're going to have a picture that's going to
start to fall apart. Yeah, and the other thing that you need some bandwidth, and you're also going to need some CPU on the encoding computer, because now it is taking larger images and trying to encode them quickly. So the larger the resolution and the higher the bit rate, the more processing that has to happen on the encoding computer. So you're going to need to have some horsepower there. So I mean, there's definitely an advantage to go in HD. I think as we get into this, we're going to find that with HD, I've got to make sure I've got this, and I got to make sure I got that, and I got to make sure of that. And
which means money.
Yeah, it's a function of it's a reliability type of issue as well. If you build in some margin for error when you can lower the resolution a bit and have a greater opportunity to succeed if you're not pushing the boundaries in all these different areas.
So let's talk a little bit about with the HD stream. So you're streaming HD, you stream at a very high bit rate. People on the other end, I always say what goes up must come down. So what people on the other end are going to make sure they have to have a good network to receive your stream.
Right.
And if they're at a coffee shop or if they're in a public place, their bandwidth may be limited.
Yeah, there may be.
And even at home.
Right. And if you're the other piece that I think we may get into later here is sending up the multiple streams. What some of the popular services and the broadcast networks will do is they're going to send up multiple streams and then have the player adjust for.
That's what I was kind of getting at, but I couldn't remember the technical term for it.
Yeah, so the player would, it would sense your bandwidth speed and go, oh, I'm going to serve this guy the SD stream for a little while because I can see that his bandwidth is. And you can do all that, but in order to support that, the ability to do that, you've got to have some sophistication on the sending end. You're going to need to be sending out multiple streams and set up some things on your end, which again just leads to a little more complex, and with more complex means a little more potential for or increased likelihood of failure in any one area.
Now you can, but along those lines, Steve, you can set up something a little bit of a step below that. You could still send up multiple streams, and you could just have people on the platform, at least on our platform. I know there's other companies out there doing streaming video, but on our platform, you could customize it so you could give people an option.
Right.
When they log onto the platform, they could choose a lower speed, medium speed, or the high definition speed. At least with Flash Media Live Encoder, and Wirecast gives you that option too, right?
Right. Yep.
So that's another option. So if you wanted to stream high definition, you could still do that and give people options. They would just have to click on it manually.
Right. If someone starts to experience issues because they can't consume the high definition stream, then you'd say, hey, switch over to the standard or the low definition.
And we have some customers that do that.
Yeah.
And it's set up and a lot of times it's set up in a default mode where when the person logs in, it's logging in on a kind of a medium standard definition, but they could do high definition if they wanted to.
Yeah, and you can also specify which bit rate you want to set up as the default position. So
Right.
it just depends on where you're at. Some churches say, well, I want to send them the high definition stream as the default, and if they have issues, then they can back down.
Right.
And the other option would be do vice versa. And another thing that people commonly ask is, well, if I'm sending up multiple streams, aren't I going to be using a lot more bit rate because I'm sending up a high-speed stream and a low-speed stream, or if I set up 2 high-speed streams, or would that double my bandwidth? And the answer is your viewers are only going to watch one of the streams, right? So if they're on the lower speed one, then they're not consuming the high-speed bit rate.
But you still need to have the ceiling. You've got to have enough ceiling to have all 3.
Yes.
Correct?
Right. On your end, from the publishing end, from the pushing up end, you would need.
So your upload speed has to be able to match.
Yes.
You've got to, if you add it up, so my high definition stream is going to be, 1 megabyte, just to say that. And then my medium speed is going to be 500 kilobytes per second. And then my low speed is going to be 200.
Yeah.
So then you've got 15, 17. So you got 1.7 that you have to have more than 1.7,
yes.
But that's what it adds up to. So you've got to have enough headroom, so to speak.
Yeah, you'd want to have like 3 megabit consistently
at least.
uploaded.
Yeah.
So yeah, you would, on your end, you're going to need to sum the streams. But as far as consumption of the bandwidth, then people will be switching. And if you're say more conscious of bandwidth costs, you may send up an SD stream and then offer the option for them to switch over to an HD for those that want the richer experience.
And once you set, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, or go the other way.
So, and once you, and in fairness, once you set all this up, you're pretty much done. I mean, if you've set it up, you've taken the time to make sure all your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed, and you get it to work on the platform part, you should be fine. But, again, it's going to take a little bit of effort and a little bit of time.
Right.
So, all right. So, standard definition does still, I think, in my opinion, wins this battle. Again, because it's simpler.
Right. It's going to be up to the church, but for the church, if you look at the makeup of the church, it's typically got volunteers that are participating. They're typically doing this once a week, and so they're not doing this every day.
Right.
And so you've got people that will be showing up, and you're just you want to err on the side of let's make this thing work
and make it as simple as possible.
And simple as possible for the people that are involved. So that's where you say, well, let's go ahead and take a minor hit. And I think it's a lot like you can discern the difference in quality, but it's not a significant difference, especially at the resolutions of the sizes you're seeing on the web in the normal window. I've got, my kids do these little tests where people say, oh, this bottled water tastes better than this bottled water or this other one. And you really put them to the test, they can't tell the difference. And there's, at the resolutions that the web is broadcasting at, the size of the screen on the websites and stuff.
1080s.
It would probably be tough to discern the, which one was the high quality one versus the low quality one. Based on just whether you're sending an SD or an HD stream. I think
from your browser now.
Yeah, there's going to be other things that are going to implement the quality of your picture even more than whether you're SD or HD, and that gets into camera quality and lighting,
which are the basics.
Yeah,
and never underestimate audio either. Believe it or not.
That's true.
Because really, the first thing people are going to notice is if your audio is bad.
Yeah.
I mean, if your picture's really bad, yes, they're going to notice that. But audio really is king. You can have really a great high definition picture, and if your audio stinks,
right,
people aren't going to be around.
That is very true, and that's probably where we get the greatest variability with our churches that are streaming with us is in the audio.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's
we'll do a podcast sometime on that.
Yeah, it's typically either overdriven and way too loud, or you can't hear it and on the other end.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing you notice.
We need to do a podcast on that. So we're talking here standard definition versus high definition streaming video. And the other thing to keep in mind too, folks, is more and more people are looking at things from their mobile devices now. I mean, I can't remember the stat I put out recently, but we do mobile apps here, and we're finding out that I think it's like over 50% of the people out there are looking at things on their mobile devices now, which means smaller screens.
Right.
I mean, I realize that, their screen's bigger than the iPhone screen. You have what do you have? You have a
Samsung Galaxy
3, but
yeah.
there's a 4 out there, right?
There's actually a 5 now.
There's a 5, and they're bigger screens, but still, the screens are not as big as your laptop or those kind of things. And so the smaller screen actually works for your advantage if you're doing streaming, because you can do a standard definition stream with not a real high pixel rate, and it can look great.
Yeah, exactly.
Again, these factors such as lighting and your camera work too. I mean, if you've got if you've got people that are not paying attention to the camera, or the camera's in the wrong place, or cameras are in the wrong position.
Another element back on the phone bit is, the weakest link on the phone is typically your data connection. Mm-hmm. So if you're sending out a standard definition or lower quality stream, the chances of having success for the viewers is increased. Yeah. If they're outside of Wi-Fi range, or
that's true.
Don't have a 4G connection. So.
Yeah, and even a 4G connection. I mean, they're not. You're better off if you're trying to watch something on your phone. You're better off doing Wi-Fi.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Always better. I know these guys brag about their 4G connections and all this, but it's still not great compared to if you had a good Wi-Fi connection. That's really the best thing to do. So keep that in mind. So again, standard definition. There's nothing wrong with it if you do it fairly well, and you've got lighting, you've got cameras in place. And then I guess we probably ought to talk a little bit about this. Your video capture card or your video capture device will make a big difference as well. And I know there are some people that will, and I think we covered this on one of our other podcasts, didn't we? People will try to stream using a USB type of device, which can
work. Right.
Yeah, it will adapt. Your encoder you can't, unless you're just using a little webcam, you can't just plug your USB and your encoder is not going to recognize it unless it's like a little webcast, little thing that sits on the top of your computer. If you're using, like we talked about it last time, we talked, I think, about using video cams and handy cams. You can stream with those, and some of those are pretty high quality cams now, but you still need some kind of a device between the camera and the computer, to take that signal and make it so that the live encoder, because you have to have a live encoder to stream.
Right, and that's probably the biggest point of where there's a misconception. People say, "Oh, it's got a USB plug. I'll just plug my camera into the computer." And what people don't recognize is typically the interface where you plug them into the computer, the camera manufacturer provides software to support drivers so that those two things can talk. And without that software, they don't talk. And so when you're plugging it in and then launching another program outside of that environment, like an encoder, it's not going to know, it's not going to recognize it.
And that happens quite a bit. So the solution to that, so even if it's HD or standard definition, you've got to have something that's going to be able to talk and communicate for the live encoder.
Right. So you're going to want to get either a video card, that will take the input video and send it up to your computer, which is different than the kids buying the gaming graphics computers are geared for the video going out. You want to purchase a video card that is suitable for taking input video and driving it up into your computer.
So one of the things that we push and still been pushing for a while and still do is a thing called Grass Valley. And if you're using standard definition, Grass Valley ADVC55.
Right.
And that takes your composite coming out of your camera or your S video and takes that and comes out the other end of the Grass Valley device comes out the other end using FireWire. Now, your friends at Apple invented FireWire.
Yes.
They've come up with Thunderbolt now. That's another whole podcast. But FireWire does work well in processing. Remember, we talked about processing all this information, this data, and it really makes it easy for your computer to work with that data the way it processes it. And your Flash Media Live encoder will recognize it and work well with it, or any encoder will for that matter. But again, if you use high definition, you're going to come out not with composite of your camera. You're not coming out with S-video. You're coming out with HDMI or something else, and you're going to have some kind of a video capture card or device that takes that. And you can still use FireWire. You can still have a device that has FireWire on the other end.
Right.
And will process that. So again, HD usually means more money. Means usually a little more technical expertise. It means having different equipment, which again usually costs more money.
Right, all through the chain as well.
Yeah, and as you said earlier, bandwidth is going to have to be higher. Upload speed at your location, because you're sending it up to our servers or somebody's servers, and then coming down. Standard definition, you can actually stream a pretty good looking picture at 300 kilobytes per second.
Right,
and
exactly.
You can certainly make it look good, and you can certainly allow it to do what you want it to do at a much less expensive price overall.
Right.
And it can still look pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
All right, so where are we at? We got about 2 minutes left here. We can help you on either of these things. We have customers that do high definition, and we have customers that do both, standard definition.
So if you've got, and the ones that are doing HD and that are doing it well, they've got paid full-time staff that are monitoring and managing the whole experience all during the week. That's their job. And they can, they're willing to put in the effort to get the HD stream, and that's what they want. So it's perfectly suited for that. But the majority of the churches, the average church size is 70 individuals, and so you're getting into a little bit smaller where you don't have dedicated paid AV staff that are at the church all week and tweaking and tuning and debugging and honing, and then also training when the volunteers show up. It's a little bit different environment. And so you're going to want to just make sure you know what you're getting into. And if you're in that latter environment, you want to try to create a simpler solution. Right. And as I mentioned, as we talked about, the distinction between HD and SD are not overly significant when it comes to the web. We're talking watching movies on your full screen TV. Yep, you can definitely discern it and know which one you saw in HD and which one you didn't. But when you're viewing videos on the web, it's not the first thing that jumps out at you.
Well, and when we're talking about cameras, there are cameras that give you the ability to do both, and you could do some in-house, so
testing
to speak, high definition in-house stuff, and you can do some editing. You can convert it and put it on YouTube. You can put it on Vimeo and those kind of things. So there's lots of things you could do HD for, but streaming HD presents a whole other challenge.
Right.
Again, not a challenge that certainly you can overcome it, but it's a challenge.
Right.
So there's pros and cons of both. So anyhow, if we can help you with this or anything else, we certainly we're not the only guys around here too. We've got other guys. We've got server guys that have good understanding on some of this stuff as well. And if we can help you, we certainly will give you some advice and whatever we can do. In fact, I had somebody call me yesterday that not even one of our customers who had questions. And I helped them. Didn't charge them a thing. All right, so
you've charged someone for it.
All right, so I'm Phil Thompson,
and I'm Steve Lacy,
and you can reach us support@streamingchurch.tv if you have questions or comments, or maybe you think we're off the wall on this. We'd love to hear from you, even if you think we're wrong about this. We might even give you some equal time if we think if you got a good case. And don't forget, we can help you with streaming video. We can help you with church apps. We've got an app called churchapplive.com. Just go to churchapplive.com. And of course, we've always got myflock.com, which is the website, church management. So we're out of here. Thanks, folks, for spending some time with us. We'll catch you next week for another Church Solutions podcast. Have a great day.